Number 10. Lost British jobs that kept every street alive. There was a time when you could tell what kind of morning it was by who came down your street. Before delivery apps, before online banking, before supermarkets took over everything, the street had its own cast of regulars. You heard them before you saw them. Bottles clinking, coal sacks dropping, a bicycle rattling over the curb, a ticket machine clicking on the bus, a call echoing between terraced houses. These jobs were not glamorous. Many were cold, dirty, exhausting, and badly paid. But they made ordinary streets feel connected. They brought news, heat, food, credit, transport, gossip, and sometimes just a familiar face at the door. Today, most of them have disappeared, or changed so much they barely feel like the same thing. So let's go back to the Britain where the street was still alive with people doing jobs everyone noticed. Here are 10 lost British jobs that kept every street alive. Number 10. The Lamplighter. Before streetlights switched themselves on, someone had to bring the evening. The lamplighter walked his route at dusk, stopping at each lamp, raising his pole, and lighting the street one flame at a time. It was not dramatic work, but it changed the whole mood of a place. A dark pavement became safer. A corner shop window began to glow. Children playing outside knew the day was nearly over. Curtains closed. Fires were lit. The street slowly turned from a working place into a home place. The lamplighter was part of that daily change. He marked time for everyone, not with a clock, but with light. To us now, streetlights are invisible. They come on automatically, and most people barely notice. But once, the arrival of light was a human act. Someone walked your road and made the night begin. When automatic systems took over, the job quietly disappeared. Britain became brighter and easier to manage, but it lost a small evening ritual that made every street feel personally cared for. Number 9. The knocker-up. In industrial Britain, waking up could be someone else's job. Before alarm clocks were cheap and reliable, the knocker-up walked the streets before dawn, tapping on bedroom windows with a long pole, or sometimes flicking peas at upstairs glass. Their task was simple: wake workers in time for the mill, the factory, the docks, the mine, or the railway yard. Imagine the street in the dark. Cold air, closed curtains, chimneys quiet. Then a tap at the window. Not loud enough to wake the whole house, just enough to get the right person out of bed. It feels strange now, almost impossible, but it shows how physical daily life once was. Work did not begin with a phone alarm. It began with a person outside your house, knowing your shift, your window, and your routine. The knocker-up belonged to a world where being late could cost you real money, and where whole streets rose together for hard work. Eventually, alarm clocks took over. But the image remains powerful. A street being woken by footsteps, one window at a time. Number 8. The telegram messenger. Before instant messages, urgent news arrived on a bicycle. The telegram messenger was often young, smartly dressed, and instantly recognizable. A knock from a telegram boy could make the whole house go quiet, because a telegram rarely meant something ordinary. It might bring news of a birth, a death, a wedding, a job, a military message, a business order, or a family emergency. Sometimes it brought joy. Sometimes it brought dread. And everyone knew it. In a close street, curtains might twitch when the messenger arrived. Neighbors noticed the bicycle, the uniform, the envelope. The news was private, but the arrival of it was public. That is what made the job part of street life. The telegram messenger did not just deliver paper. He carried a moment that could change the atmosphere of a whole house. It is difficult to imagine now, when messages arrive all day and most of them mean nothing. A telegram had weight. It interrupted the room. People stood still before opening it. As telephones became common and communication became faster, the telegram messenger disappeared. We gained speed and privacy, but we lost the drama of important news arriving at the door. Number 7. The Coalman. Before central heating, warmth came on someone's back. The coalman was one of the hardest-working figures on the British street. He carried heavy sacks through side passages, back alleys, yards, basement steps, and narrow terraces where nothing was easy. You knew when coal had been delivered. There were black marks on the path, dust in the air, and the smell of fuel that meant the fire would burn later. In some houses, the coal went through a coal hole near the front path. In others, it had to be carried all the way round the back. Coal was not just a product. It was the living room in winter. It was socks drying near the fire guard, a kettle warming nearby, damp coats steaming, and the family gathering around the only truly warm place in the house. The coalman was part of that comfort, though his own work was anything but comfortable. It was cold, filthy, and heavy. His clothes carried the job. His hands carried it. The pavement carried it after he had gone. Then gas fires, electric heaters, and central heating changed the rhythm. Coal bunkers emptied. Fireplaces were blocked up. The coalman's footsteps faded. Britain became cleaner and warmer. But the street lost one of its strongest signs that winter life was shared. Number 6. The Rag and Bone Man. Long before recycling bins and online selling, there was the Rag and Bone Man. He came through the streets calling for old clothes, scrap metal, broken chairs, pots, pans, prams, batteries, bed frames, anything with a little value left in it. Sometimes he had a horse and cart, later a van. But the sound of the call was the same kind of magic to children. Any old iron could send people searching through cupboards and sheds. Something broken was not simply rubbish. It might become useful again somewhere else. For children, the Rag and Bone Man could feel like a visitor from another world. A pile of old rags or a rusty bit of metal might earn a balloon, a few coins, or just the excitement of watching grown-ups trade things at the curb. He belonged to a Britain where waste moved through the street visibly. People repaired, reused, sold on, and made do. Not because it was fashionable, but because money was tight and things still had life in them. Today, we talk about sustainability as if it is new, but those streets already had a rough, noisy version of it. The Rag and Bone Man did not make recycling look clean or modern. He made it sound like a call echoing past the front doors. Some jobs brought light or news, others brought warmth. But some of the most familiar street jobs were simply part of the daily routine, the small things that told you the day had properly started. Number 5. The Paperboy. For decades, the morning newspaper did not simply appear. It was delivered by a child or teenager with a heavy bag, cold fingers, and a route to finish before school. The paperboy, and sometimes the paper girl, was one of the first signs that the street was waking up. Gates clicked, letterboxes snapped, dogs barked. In winter it was dark, wet, and miserable. In summer, the route could feel like having the whole town to yourself. For many young people, it was a first job, a small wage, a bit of independence, a lesson in being reliable when no one cared that it was raining. Every route had its own geography. The house with the impossible letterbox, the customer who complained, the dog that waited, the shortcut through the alley, and the shop where the papers had to be counted and sorted. And inside the homes, the newspaper mattered. It sat on breakfast tables. It carried football results, local news, adverts, scandals, jobs, houses, and the shape of the day. As news moved online and printed papers declined, the paper round became rarer. Another small morning ritual slipped away. The street still wakes up, but it wakes up with fewer footsteps. Number 4. The Pop Man. In many parts of Britain, one of the happiest deliveries was not essential at all. It was fizzy pop. The Pop Man arrived with crates of glass bottles, lemonade, orangeade, cream soda, cherryade, dandelion and burdock. Names like Corona and Alpine still bring back a whole childhood for some people. The bottles were heavy, colorful, and exciting. They were saved for weekends, parties, Sunday tea, or a treat after school. Children watched from the window when the delivery came because it felt like treasure arriving at the door. Like the Milkman, the Pop Man was part of a doorstep system. Empty bottles went back, full bottles came in. The sound of the crates was part of the ritual. It was not like buying a plastic bottle from a supermarket shelf. It felt personal. The delivery man knew the usual order. Families had favorites. Children argued over flavors before the bottles were even in the kitchen. Then supermarkets grew. Plastic bottles took over. Choice became bigger, cheaper, and easier. But something disappeared with the crates and returns. The thrill of a treat arriving just for your house, carried down your own street. Number 3. The Bus Conductor. There was a time when getting on a bus meant meeting 2 workers, not 1. The driver drove. The conductor controlled the rest. With a set-right or Almex-style ticket machine hanging from the shoulder, the conductor moved through the bus as if balance was second nature. Taking fares, giving change, calling stops, checking who had paid, telling people to move down inside, and somehow keeping order in a rolling public room. The sound of the ticket machine was part of British transport. A click, a tear, a small paper ticket in your hand. Conductors were not always gentle. Some were funny. Some were terrifying. Some knew every regular passenger. They helped older people, kept school children in line, answered questions, and gave the bus a human rhythm. A bus with a conductor felt social. It was not just transport. It was a little moving piece of the street. When one-person operations spread, buses became more efficient, but they also became quieter and less personal. The driver had to do everything. Passengers queued, paid, sat down, and often said nothing. The conductor disappeared, and with them went one of the last public characters of everyday travel. Number 2. The Tallyman. Not every lost job is easy to romanticize. The Tallyman, or door-to-door credit collector, was a familiar figure in many working-class streets. He came to collect weekly payments for clothes, furniture, carpets, prams, and household goods bought on credit. For some families, he made life possible. Banks were distant, wages were tight. If a child needed a coat or the house needed something essential, weekly payments could be the only way. But the Tallyman could also bring pressure. His knock might be dreaded. His notebook knew too much. He knew who was keeping up, who was falling behind, who had bought something new, and who was struggling. That is why he matters in a video about nostalgia. Old Britain was not only warm fires, paper rounds, and pop bottles. It was also debt, worry, and making do. Still, even this system was face-to-face. Money had a voice, a coat, a notebook, and a regular day. People negotiated at the door or the kitchen table. The economy was personal, sometimes uncomfortably personal. Today, credit is quieter. It hides in cards, apps, direct debits, and emails. Easier, perhaps. Less embarrassing, perhaps. But also colder. The Tallyman reminds us that the old street was alive because life was more visible, even the difficult parts. Number 1. The Milkman. If one lost job still lives in British memory by sound alone, it is the Milkman. The soft hum of the milk float, the clink of glass bottles, the quick steps from gate to doorstep, the empties collected, the full bottles left behind, silver tops shining in the morning light. For millions of people, this was the sound of the day beginning. The milkman was not just delivering milk. He was part of the household routine without being fully inside it. He knew who wanted extra bottles, who took orange juice, who had guests staying, who had a new baby, and who had not put the empties out for a few days. That last detail mattered. In some places, the milkman was one of the first people to notice if something was wrong. A quiet house, untouched bottles, curtains still closed. The job carried a kind of informal care that no app can quite replace. The doorstep itself became a message board, a note under a bottle, money left in an envelope, an extra order scribbled quickly before bed. It was simple, trusting, and very ordinary. Then, shopping changed. Fridges changed storage. Plastic cartons replaced glass. People left earlier, came home later, and the old morning rhythm broke apart. Milk still exists, of course. It is everywhere. But the ritual is different. What people miss is not only the milk, it is the sound, the trust, the familiar figure in the half-light, the feeling that the street was already moving before you opened the curtains. And that is the real story behind all these lost jobs. They disappeared because life changed, often for good reasons. Homes became warmer, shopping became easier, messages became faster, streets became cleaner, work became less brutal. Nobody should pretend the past was perfect. But when these jobs vanished, something else vanished with them. The regular calls, the shared routines, the small knocks at the door. The people who knew every house, not because they were friends, but because the street itself was their workplace. The lamplighter brought evening. The knocker-up brought morning. The telegram messenger brought urgent news. The Coalman brought warmth. The rag-and-bone man took away what was broken. The Paperboy brought the day's headlines. The popman brought treats. The conductor carried the city. The tallyman carried the pressure of money. And the milkman brought the first sound of the day. They were not just jobs. They were the moving parts of the street. And maybe that is why people remember them so clearly. Because before everything became private, automatic, and silent, everyday life happened out loud. And every street